Hey,
Hey Eric, how's it going?
pretty good. How about you? How's everything over there?
Not too shabby. Just another day in paradise.
Congrats, man. About the NSC education. Comedy.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. So, what was the day like today? What teams did you have any athletes that you were training today?
There's like table tennis. I trained like three table tennis athletes today,
Uh-huh.
and they're going to the uh I forgot the competition's name, but anyway, they're going on a competition, so it's a deload day.
Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. Is it going to be like a local competition, national? Are they traveling for it?
They're going to like Zhanghua.
Zhenghua. Okay,
Yeah, I think yeah,
nice.
Zhanghua. I think.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. There's a couple of reasons why I asked that because today I know you wanted to talk a little bit about meditation and
Yeah,
breathing. But I think that the tools that you and I can kind of talk about and explore today can be really good to utilize, especially when the team is kind of going out of their normal routine. So I think
yeah,
when a lot of the athletes are traveling, whether it's other parts of the country or even internationally, some of these tools can either bring on a stronger sympathetic result as a part of trying to adjust to time and kind of getting into that readiness, that flow state, bringing on much more of hey Nino, I see you. One of my athletes are being goofballs
cool,
here.
cool.
Um, but yeah, so being able to give them these tools to either stir up that central nervous system or either that or adjusting and reducing anxiety prior to competition. Um, once we give them these tools, I think being able to use them in just your everyday life and especially competition, just because we're kind of throwing these into the training program. Uh, but I think it's wonderful to see, when athletes adapt these different, tools, whether it's for my cyclists, I love it when we're looking at like a team sprint and we've got, the three guys coming up to the starting block and, the initial reaction is just nice and calm. And then when they see that 10-second marker come down, that's when they're focusing on that strong inhale. They're trying to rev up right before they launch out of the starting block. So, it has a wide array of places and ways to use it.
Cool. So, like, what made you like start doing like breathing or meditation, this kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, uh, I started to listen to quite a few podcasts from Dr. Andrew Huberman. I think not only as a speaker, but the man's brilliant. um, and I also took a few steps to reach out to some of the faculty at Nova Southeastern University in Florida in the USA, and there is this department, this neuroscience department that is also a part of the um, International Society of Sport Nutrition, and also a part of the strength conditioning and the exercise science department. And the director of the Society for Neurosports, Dr. Jamie Tarter, I've had some amazing conversations about the work that she's doing within exercise psychology at Nova Southeastern University. And it just felt like I could do much more of a part to influence the psychology of the athletes. It's always been kind of a project on the back burner is looking at more of an exercise psychology background accreditation. So I went through with the Society for Neurosports. They have one of their own certifications, and just going through like their brief, review for, this exam, it brought up a lot of things that I could be doing to, positively, influence a lot of the athletes, whether it was mindset prior to competition, handling anxiety outside of, their daily training stress, being able to monitor it in some way, whether it was subjective or objective. So that kind of led to a few things. One, my readiness assessment. So when I send out a questionnaire, I'm looking at a few things. So not only, just general fatigue, but I'm also looking at sleep, their general soreness, the psychological stress that they have, and then the emotional stress. What state are they in? So when they're answering these questions, it's very simple. It's just like a 1 through 5 scale. There's a little bit more of a descriptor for the emotional state. But whenever I'm looking at this, I think that a general trend I've seen is, the more stressed, psychologically, the more fatigued they are. If I'm starting to see, 1s and 2s in this psychological state, chances are I need to tailor a longer, more gradual warm-up protocol. If I am seeing, say an athlete who has been injured in the past, if they are continuing to cope with their rehabilitation and I'm starting to see much lower scores on their emotional state, then I know, maybe I need to spend a little bit more time, with them, with the physical therapist, and start understanding, why is this pissing you off? I know that you're not back to your state, but, is the injury, is this process, what can we do to kind of navigate the rehab protocol to kind of get you back to that baseline a little bit quicker? And it just, I think for me, when I start monitoring, when I start asking these questions to athletes, we start, kind of breaking down the simple facts of, are we, if we're going through a heavy training phase, are we getting our 8+ hours of sleep? Are we, trying to increase our protein intake? Are we, looking at, whether it's, creatine supplementation if we've got an acute stress, or are we looking at some type of collagen peptide, for any type of acute inflammation in tendon ligaments? Just some small questions that could lead to a faster route to get them to where they want to be.
Cool. So, like, usually how do you start teaching athletes breathing or meditation, this kind of stuff? Because they usually are they want fast results, just like coaches. They want fast results.
Well, I think one of the things to consider is when we're breathing, taking it a little bit slower. When we start rushing into maybe the fast inhale, something that's CNS driven, something that is eliciting a greater stress response than more of an anabolic. Let's bring in the parasympathetic system. Let's try to enhance, turn that on, and start reducing central nervous input there. But I think that when we start slowing it down, we start thinking about quality. Can we make sure that our posture is correct? Simple things for a lot of the athletes that I'm training, we're talking, very kyphotic. We're seeing a lot of the athletes, especially on the bike, to be in that aero position, they're really reducing the amount of volume that they're able to bring into the lungs. So can we get them in an open position where we can see much more of the abdomen and the chest moving during the breath? Can we expand completely 360 degrees around the waist as we're bringing that air into the lungs? Can we get that tongue to the roof of the mouth during that inhale? We want to make sure that they consider the fact that carbon dioxide, CO2, is going to be our trigger for our breath. So if we are just doing a very shallow breath, we're not moving the body, we're not going to have a whole lot of CO2 buildup. As we're starting to move, as we're starting to utilize that oxygen in the body, our muscles are then going to produce that waste, CO2 being part of that, which we need to exhale. We need to get out so that we can pull more O2 in. So, when we're at rest and we can focus on full volume, we can focus on the posture and as much range of motion throughout the thoracic and the thoracic cavity and the abdomen, then we can start translating that into training. So, I'll take a first step of just breathing in a supine state. Can we get one hand on the chest, one hand on the stomach? Can we see the belly button expand? Can we see the ribs come out to the side, expand, and then see that chest rise? So belly button, ribs, then chest, versus just relying on that chest moving throughout each repetition of inhaling and exhaling. Can we then provide that proper breath with a open posture and just expand the time zone? So if we're focusing on a small pause, in between each inhale and exhale, starting to tolerate being able to hold that breath in that full stretch state throughout the lungs and diaphragm, I think then they're going to start understanding what it feels like just to fill those lungs up completely. As we go into, any type of axial loading in the weight room, then we can start understanding a little bit more about pulling the air in through the nose, bracing in that open posture, and we start connecting the dots a little bit about when and where we can use those breathing tools. When we're going through just a very novice, meditation setting, I do want it to be on a day where, they're kind of tapping out. It's been, 4 to 6 weeks of really pushing the limits, both in technical training and in the weight room. We'll try to ease tension. Most of the time it's hamstrings and lower backs that, are starting to feel the most in the soreness. So, at that time, anything that we can do to ease tension on the posterior chain. So putting a foam roller under the knees, getting them supine, elevating, heels up on a plyo box or the wall. And, from there, just focusing on anything where the exhale is going to be longer than the inhale, we're going to have a much more dominant response in parasympathetic system. So, I start off with just a general 3-second in, 3-second hold, 5-second out. And it's not very specific, but I do want them to be able to pace the exhale. I do want to hear their inhale, and I want to make sure that as they're holding, that we're also bracing. So I should see, if we've got one hand on the chest, one hand on the stomach, I should see that hand on the stomach just a little bit higher. And I should see it remain for that 3 seconds. So it gives me a little visual when they're going through, any type of parasympathetic breath, where I want them to hold it for a set amount of time. And I think that when they start feeling that stomach moving just a little bit higher, we can get a sense of what it feels like to really fill those lungs up.
Cool, man. So we talk a lot about parasympathetic, sympathetic, but how about how does breathing affects or meditation affects the brain wave? Like the other day you posted on your story, right?
Yeah.
I love it because there's like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I translated for an Italian guy for like club bell strength, and he talks a lot about like brainwave, how the brainwave affects the athlete's performance. So I kind of want to talk about your thoughts on brainwave.
Yeah, so when we're looking at EEGs, so keep in mind, I am not a neuroscientist. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I like to expand though. One of the reasons why I reached out to a lot of faculty at Society for Neurosports is, they're brilliant when it comes to, evaluating the EEG. So for those who don't know what an EEG is an electroencephalogram. And typically in a lab, you'll see a skull cap with all these cords sticking out, and it is reading your brain waves. So, when we're looking at, different powers within different wavelengths, we can identify what state of sleep we are in. So typically when the EEG is being used, we're trying to monitor and quantify the quality of the sleep. So this is shown with different stages of non-REM and the amount of time that we accumulate in REM sleep. REM being where we're putting together everything from our ability to execute different skills, being able to whatever we're trying to absorb and process in a problem-solving skill. When I think about it from an athletic standpoint, when we're trying to break down different movements, when we're trying to focus on, tactical and skills like pacing, strategy, a lot of the Olympic weightlifting movements that we need to break down as strength coaches, all have a specific task. When I'm providing different cues, how well the athlete perceives it the first time versus, being able to repeat this day in, day out and have a strong, recovery to their training session and being able to replicate it without, as much influence from, cues from me. So when I'm starting to see things like their EEG that quantifies, how much total time they were sleeping, and I do have to say the Enchanted EEG headband that I have right here, it does a lot of the work for me. So when we're talking about specific brain waves, so delta, theta, alpha, beta, and sigma, being the tools, way of identifying the quality of sleep, it is not me looking at each individual EEG, as soon as the athlete wakes up, but being able to get a snapshot from just wearing the headband for the entire night to identify the time that they went to bed, the percentage of time that they were actually asleep. So being in bed and just, getting a rough idea from the athlete of a subjective record of, what time they thought they fell asleep versus what time the machine is actually calculating when, we're reaching maybe an N1 or an N2 non-REM stage of sleep. When I get that report back and they give me, just a scale of 1 through 5, the quality of their sleep, we can then, start matching, what was the percentage of time that they were, actually asleep, how many hours of sleep that was calculated from the headband, and, their own perspective of it. And I do have to say, for the most part, it's night and day differences. They feel like, well, I feel like I went to bed at 10, I put down the phone at 10:30, they're still in bed, messaging, going through IG, a ton of different social networks. But by the time that they are in bed, turning the headband on and actually getting, a recording of them falling into that N1 stage, it typically takes about 30 to 45 minutes for most of them, due to the fact that they're, still revved up from, their training, have a phone in their hands, and, probably a little distracted with whether it's their plan for the rest of the week and, or, what other tasks that they have to accomplish outside of, the training plan. So when I use this in a meditation standpoint, it all depends on the breathing protocol that we have. If it is something that is very high attentive, CNS driven, typically a very powerful long inhale. There is a protocol that I took from Kurt Tropiano from the Australian Strength and Conditioning Association's annual meeting. I think it was last November. But one of the things that he uses is rapid fire. So it is a in the mouth, out the mouth, deep inhale, exhale, and it is very, very quick. So with this rapid influx of O2 to CO2, we're getting, a very drastic improvement and influence in the CNS. So when I'm looking at something that is much more faster pace with their breath, trying not to reduce the quality of the air that they're pulling in, I'm going to see much more of, their high beta, their focus, they're awake, they're thinking. Up here, I'm sorry, I've got my chart right here for reference. So the 5 bandwidths, just in brief summary here. So delta, with a frequency of 1 to 4 hertz, is going to be showing much more of our slow wave sleep and our deep sleep. Theta, which is 4 to 8 hertz, is going to be our non-REM sleep, our meditative state, and a trance. So in some of the research, I found that they use a ratio. So when they're thinking about, being able to be at a higher state, high beta, to theta, which is our non-REM sleep, our meditative state, what is the overall time and frequency that we are spending at high beta to theta ratio? Going back to the summary here, sigma, also known as low beta, is from 12 to 16 hertz. So this is when we're in our spindle wave, our sleep onset, we're getting into a sleeping state, but also a non-REM sleep. And then high beta from 16 to 30 hertz, which you are awake, you're thinking, you're processing. But this could also be indicating that you are entering REM sleep and or dreaming. So when we're going back and forth into a relaxed state, I'm going to be looking for, they do have this band power, but if you're looking at the spectroscopy, which is just a brief range of the frequency in hertz, I'm looking for them to just drop very, very low. I wish I could show a picture on IG Live. That might be very helpful. But basically, we're looking at, coming down, being able to stay within that theta state, so 4 to 8 hertz. And the best part about the spectroscopy is it gives you the visual feedback of what state you're in. Now, I can't do this for every athlete. I only have a few of these headbands. When I do have a chance of utilizing it with small groups, I do like to, kind of pass it around and let everyone see, what that state really feels like, 3 to 5 minutes at a time. But in a group setting, I think the priority should be making sure breathing mechanics are set, making sure the posture positively influences and allows you to really open up that diaphragm. And then also being able to connect the state that athletes can relax in their sports setting. For example, when my athletes are preparing for a maximal effort, whether it's, before things like a power clean or a max effort back squat, or they're going into a maximal effort on the bike, being able to slow that breath down, drive a parasympathetic signal back to the brain, to be able to, reduce the amount of activity from CNS, allow that CNS system to relax and reboot prior to, revving it back up again. And making sure that we're initiating that parasympathetic response immediately after or in between their sets to provide the best recovery at an acute state.
Cool. So when you're like doing like monitoring the brainwave, so what are they usually at? What are the stages of the athlete usually at?
It ranges. When I'm looking at individuals, I would love to bring one up right about now. When I look at their frequencies and I get the upload via email from the Enchanted Wave headband, currently I go through a full average. It's been much more of an observation for me right now, because every EEG is coming back quite different. And there are many things that kind of provide a different response from everyone. So we've got, athletes with longer hair. It's a little bit more difficult to get the response, especially with the headband covering the ears, as recommended from Enchanted Wave headband. But as far as, indicating like an average of, theta wave versus, alpha or ratios in between, everyone has their own individual response. So being able to kind of come back and say, this is a set number that you're aiming for, is not quite right. The amount of time that we're spending in theta after being able to educate and give the athlete more of an opportunity to learn that proper breathing, technique. I think that is my ultimate goal during these sessions right now. But as far as being able to, provide feedback, it is providing the spectroscopy and letting them, see how when we're pulling air in and out at a more rapid pace, simulating a high like anaerobic or hypoxic response, we're seeing much more of alpha, those high alpha spikes. When we're able to settle down, typically I won't let them see the screen, but I'll be able to cue as I'm looking at the spectroscopy. And then if we're doing like a one-on-one session, and we're able to, sit down and let them watch the spectroscopy the whole way through, I think they start to see that even the slightest thing of, keeping the eyes closed, being able to, lie supine, being able to open up the rib cage and diaphragm throughout their breath, that when I take that screenshot at the end, they're able to see what those small changes and just being able to put more thought into their breath can do for their brain activity.
That was cool, man. So how long have you been using how long have you been using meditation, this kind of stuff, to help your athletes? And
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And how was the result?
So as far as the neurofeedback goes, so being able to utilize the EEG with the meditative practice, I've been exploring this since July. So this has been, it hasn't been quite consistent with the same athletes all the way through. But it has been, a practice that's opened up ways of, how we can transfer these skills and that setting of, a greater, theta activity, being able to reduce sympathetic activity in between these high maximal efforts. I think those tools that I'm providing are also being used in different occasions, which is pretty interesting to me. That's what it's all about, being able to have a brief understanding of how this tool, this technique of just a natural breath and being able to manipulate the breath in a way that also changes, things like, neurotransmitters, the way our neural network and hormone response are working together, and really kind of dial into, how our body is able to operate at its, peak potential.
So have you been did you do meditation yourself?
I do.
Yeah.
So I love it because sometimes during our recovery reboot days, I'll try to do a time lapse for the athletes. Nothing too crazy. I try to at least provide myself with 5 to 10 minutes of I took a note here from Huberman. Dr. Huberman notes that three of his routines that he utilizes every day throughout the week is making sure that he received morning sunlight. So being able to utilize the skin and pull that sunshine in to start not only jumpstart our circadian rhythm, but also for early cognitive processing, being able to let the brain ramp up versus the 9-to-5 worker who's jumping on the scooter 30 minutes after they woke up and experiencing all that stress and traffic, right before they have to get to work and just kind of fumble throughout the day. Being able to perform 180 to 200 minutes of zone 2 aerobic exercise, and that's per week, sorry. And then his last one, and this is where I kind of create different outlets for it, but being able to accumulate 10 to 30 minutes, 3 to 7 times per week of non-sleep deep rest. Now, a lot of the times, when I'm walking through the offices or walking through the training center, I notice that our typically from 1 to 2 is kind of siesta time, where everyone's either head on the desk or they're kind of passed out with the eye patch over their eyes. Now I think that a nap is a fantastic tool, and if done right, a 30-minute nap can, and it has been shown, can replace a small acute amount of sleep deprivation. So if we're seeing, maybe a 5 to 6 hour sleep period where the athlete's coming out, super groggy, I'm actually recommending that during that post lunchtime siesta period that they're trying to monitor a sleep that is, a higher in quality. So making sure that they're, in a colder room, making sure that the screen's off, the noise is reduced, and they're getting shut-eye for 30 solid minutes, but not trying to go over that period. For myself, being able to utilize apps like Spotify for meditative story, I really enjoy that. A guided meditation, being able to use that time to write, being able to express new goals throughout the week, or just spending time, walking to find myself somewhere in nature, where I can see greens and blues and allow that to manipulate my mind in a more, peaceful sense. But yeah, I think that I don't always meditate, but I try to find myself, within 3 to 4 days throughout the week in that non-sleep deep rest period. And I am a big fan of utilizing the headband, not so much as to, calculate the amount of time that I'm spending in each wavelength, but more or less to provide myself with that visual feedback when I'm, either in the ice bath trying to control my breath, whether I'm trying to go through stages. So I love, one of my favorite tools is being able to have 3 to 5 minutes where I'm going through a parasympathetic state, pulling air in, making sure the exhale is longer than the inhale, and seeing how that reduces the frequency of the frequency and the state of my EEG, and then being able to flip the switch and perform either a rapid inhale to exhale or a double inhale. So it's a pulse of a small inhale through the nose and then a larger and faster inhale through the nose to fill the lungs up completely, and holding that state, and seeing how that enhances alpha activity, being able to, not only manipulate a more CNS signal, but also being able to see how quickly I can then recover from that, fight or flight state. Yeah.
Cool. I started meditate probably 3 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of really helps me when I really need recovery. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, when I'm going through meditative states, it's more, whether it's work or, something going on outside of the day-to-day stress. And whenever I get kind of thrown for a loop, I feel like that's the time where I either need to, put something down on paper. I need to get some thoughts out of my head and put them on paper so I can just kind of move past them and continue to move forward in the day. Or I need some time where it's by myself, just being able to not be distracted from, social media or the tasks that I have written down for the day for work, but being able to kind of control the uncontrollable, so to speak, tapping into the way that I breathe, I think gives me an outlet for whatever type of stress that I'm trying to handle through the day.
Yeah. So I think the reason I love it, it's because we all always talk about periodization, and nowadays we talk about how much rest our athlete needs, but even when we're not training, even when they're not doing strength training or their specific whatever the basketball training or sprinting, that kind of stuff, they're using their phones, and probably they're doing I don't know, for interview, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
There's those are all stress, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what kind of stress it is. I think that when we hear the word stress, it's automatically negative. But I think that if we kind of microdose what type of stress and how we're applying that stressor, it goes the same with resistance training. Just like you were saying, if we can expose the athletes to a stress that brings up such anxiety, so increasing that alpha wave, being able to tolerate CO2 buildup with hyperventilating, can we give them something to also think about with it? So when we're going through some type of hyperventilation, or like I said, Kurt Tropiano's, he's got that rapid fire protocol, 30 seconds, as fast as you can through the mouth, inhale and exhale. And when you start implementing these on maybe a weekly basis. And you can also trigger maybe some negative feelings. So say the athlete, faulted, or they went through their last competition and kind of froze. Can we bring up some of those negative feelings, being able to, kind of navigate through them with a breath that triggers the same type of very high sympathetic, output, but then also being able to teach them about how to come out of it. I was a swim instructor for about 10 years before I came to Asia, and I would always remember how we started with just novice swimmers. The 1980s, where the uncle teaches the kid and just tosses him into the pool and says, "I hope you can swim." We don't want to throw athletes into competition and not have tools to prepare to kind of climb out of situations that pose a lot of anxiety. So before we, just teach them the skills, can we also have that backup plan as well? Can we put them into a state of complete calm? I like to be able to change my cues. So if we're going through a nice, calm, parasympathetic protocol, we're going through maybe a 4-7-8. So a 4-second inhale through the nose, 7-second hold, 8-second exhale. So those lungs are firing for 8-second, 8-second exhale. But if we can push through, be able to pace that exhale, make sure that we're initiating the proper mechanics of the breath, and then all of a sudden I change the way that I present. It's instead of a count of 1, 2, 3, 4, I change my tone so that as they're inhaling, it can be a little louder, a little bit more aggressive. If they're going through a hypoxic drill where we're trying to increase the tolerance of CO2 buildup, can I increase either the volume of my voice? Can I change the style of the music to influence heartbeat? If we're not able to slow heartbeat down, then we're going to be holding that breath in with a greater amount of blood that's circulating. That's going to require more absorption of O2, which is going to create more CO2 buildup. So there's quite a few ways that you can manipulate it to either reflect on an athlete's negative association to their performance, and then be able to help them climb out of it in a way that is done by a stronger parasympathetic signal. And I think all of that is being able to find ways where you can connect the dots between anxiety in and out of the training, and then being able to associate a more positive, more confident feeling with either a lift that they are most confident in, or a skill, that is, being used in maybe a partner, warm up towards the end of, your CNS work. But I always try to, kind of find out where the athlete's lagging, mentally, where those breaking points are, so that we can, slowly reintroduce them, and then be able to manipulate the way that we're breathing to kind of overcome those negative feelings.
Cool, man. I think it's really good to have you in Taiwan, man.
Shishini, thank you. I really do appreciate that.
I mean, your athletes are really lucky to have you.
I really do appreciate that, man. I think they they really do make sure that I think whenever we're going into competition, or whenever we're trying to aim just a little bit higher, the rewards come from their daily output. Every training session is roller coaster, and it's so
Yeah.
exciting. There's a lot of curveballs, but the athletes that show up, we have gotten into such a strong sync now that we know when one person's kind of fallen just a little over to the side. So we, as a team, we're starting to get a sense of when we need to pull those individuals in for more support, and they continue to elevate their standards. So I think it's only natural that as a coach that really pushes me to want to do the same.
Cool. Thanks, man. Every time I talk to you, I really learned a lot.
Yeah.
I'm so focused on what you're saying. We
Oh,
learned
that's
a lot,
awesome.
man.
I think a couple things going forward, Eric, and maybe we can put a pin in this for our next IG live. But I'd love to talk a little bit more about the EEG.
Okay.
Maybe be able to bring up some more examples. I apologize that I feel like I didn't come as fully prepared to discuss about that. But
No. I mean, there's like brainwave and meditation, this kind of stuff. It's like so important right now. I really love it. But there's not a lot of like strength coach or like performance coach talk about this right now.
Well, so that is actually what I was going to suggest. I'll reach out to the individuals who I consult with to help me get a better sense of how I can utilize this for my athletes. One of them is actually a visiting scholar at Nova Southeastern right now. He's from Germany, but Camille Sellock is by far one of the most knowledgeable individuals when it comes to utilizing this EEG. The director of the Society for Neurosports, Dr. Jamie Tarter, is also a phenomenal influence, and she's taught me so much about basically when I'm providing the EEG to the athletes, it's not something that I want to overthink or be able to provide with knowing that I need to spend so much more time evaluating it. But being able to understand, the simple things about, their sleep onset latency. How long does it take you to fall asleep? How much time are you spending in bed versus how much time are you sleeping in bed? And with that, being able to understand, how often are you cycling through your REM to non-REM sleep cycles? And I think that just being able to identify these and giving the athletes, this kind of, shadowed state where I don't necessarily reveal their scores right away. I mean, they have their phone, they see all the outputs and they send me the screenshots, but I get the raw data sent to my email. But when they're sending me this information, it's not to, kind of throw it at their face and say, well, you're going to bed at 1 a.m. But it's more about what can we do as coaches to maybe provide those tools through a meditative state to maybe help influence their habits of when they're falling asleep, how quickly they can fall asleep. Those are the things that I think go a long way.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too, brother. Awesome.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate for the time. I know you got to go to bed early, man. So last thing,
you know it.
and I'm gonna let you go. Last thing. So
Okay.
if there's like people interested in like what we're talking today, where can they reach out to?
Oh, I mean, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is J Snyder, SNYDER 706 Ling Liu.
Good, man. Good. Appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah,
See you, brother.
anytime. All right, take care, mate. Cheers.
See you, brother.